Now, if you don't recognize our next guest by face, you may, I'm sure, be familiar with his name. It's Bill Frank, and he's been a news journal, well, he's been a paperman for 50 years, and he's been with the News Journal writing a column in the morning news, which has appeared regularly since the early 1950s. Now, his interests are as varied as his columns, and I'm sure you'll enjoy meeting him. Bill, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Bill, you've been hanging around newspaper offices for quite some time. How did all that get started?
Well, I was going to the Wilmington High School as a junior, and I got a job as an office boy in the morning news. And then the day I was graduated from high school, they offered me a job as a reporter. I went out and bought myself a hat, and stepped all over it, you know, and bought myself a pipe, bought myself a can of tobacco. I bought myself a pack of cigarettes like all reporters are supposed to have, and I said I was a journalist.
Huh.
And I've been working like that ever since.
Now, your columns have been read by thousands of Wilmington's Attonians over the years now. How did you get started writing it?
It started, first it was called The Man About Town, and it was in the Evening Journal. And it was just odds and ends of news notes. And little by little opinions crept into it. And then it was changed from Man About Town to a title called Frankly Speaking. And as that developed, my opinionated ego developed. And the first thing you knew, I became very pompous and pontifical and started to tell people what ought to be done. And that's how I got on that road there.
Well, what are some of the highlights of your career?
Well, I used to cover Ku Klux Klan meetings, Item 1. Why they sent me to the Ku Klux Klan meeting, I don't know. But I went to a Ku Klux Klan rally down here in Newcastle on a farm, and a riot developed, and I got scared, and I went to hide for cover. I found myself in a pig pen, and then the pigs started making noise, so I got out of there and ran into Newcastle and told my story. That's one event.
That's a highlight.
That was one of them, yeah. Another time, in 1966, on the News Journal, they sent me to Vietnam to interview Delaware boys. And when I got off at the airport at Saigon, which is probably one of the biggest in the world then, see, I was looking for a certain building where I would start my work, and I went to an MP and I said to him, where do I get the building, so forth and so forth and so forth. And he looked at me and says, "You Bill Frank?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, I'm from Delaware City." Of all the places, so that started me. So I spent about 2 or 3 weeks in Vietnam, going all over the country.
Were you in the combat zone?
I was in some of the combat zone. I was up on the Ticonderoga, which is a big aircraft carrier up above when they were sending planes out bombing North Vietnam. And then I went back again in 1968, right in the middle of what was known as the Tet Offensive.
Yes.
And I went up to a city of Hue, which used to be the capital of ancient Vietnam, and we landed on the landing zone there on what's oddly known as the Perfume River, and there was shooting going on. I saw Marines in slit trenches, and I thought, my goodness, this is like that movie called Combat, you know? They said, "Get down, you so-and-so, this is war." See, they were actually shooting, so I got down. And then to get to the Marine headquarters, we had to go up the street, and they had sharpshooters ahead of us, shooting down snipers, and I finally got out of there in a hurry. That was some of the big. I also interviewed President Nixon in Wilmington, and there was a picture, and I destroy that picture every time I see it.
What was the picture of?
It was me and Nixon and some other newspaper men from Wilmington, and they say, "Tear it up, it's been destroyed." Say.
Why do you feel that way about your picture?
It wasn't me, it was Nixon.
I see.
Those were some of the highlights. I've also seen 3 men hanged in Delaware.
Well, when was the last hanging in Delaware?
About 46. And I used to go to the old workhouse at Price's Corner to see them whip. Whippings were on Saturdays. There was always an assignment to go out there and see the men whip on the bare back, well laid on, as the law says.
Prison reform, I noticed, has always been one of your pet peeves or interests.
It's my interest, but I'm getting kind of dismayed about it. I think I'm on a merry-go-round. I feel you talk and you talk and you talk, and nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens in Delaware.
We had Mr. Casson from the parole board on a few weeks ago. It would have been interesting to have you here at that time.
Well, I tell you, I like Ollie. They call him Ollie Casson.
Ollie, yes.
I like him, and I didn't want to get into an argument with him. So
I see.
I think some of their decisions are from hunger. I think they. My opinion is, I don't think they look at the individual standing before them. They're also concerned about the public reaction, which shouldn't be any of their business at all. They should, if you're going to mete out justice, they should mete it out without worrying about what the public's going to say, what are the cops going to say, what is the legislature going to say, period.
Do you believe in capital punishment?
No, I'm deadly against it. I don't think it proves anything, and of course you can always make a mistake, and I'm very much against capital punishment, because I tell you, I saw 3 men hang, and I don't want to see any more hang, and I've seen the gallows. I guess I was very happy one time the Community Legal Aid Society was going to requisition the gallows and sell it at auction to get some money from the Department of Correction, but they stopped that nonsense.
Now, to change the subject, you won quite a few awards. Why don't we hit some of the highlights of those?
Well, let's see. One time I went to what's known as the regimental dinner affair of the Delaware National Guard at the Hotel DuPont, and I was advised to wear a dinner jacket, which I abhor. So I went there, and then one of the surprises was Governor Peterson gave me a medal, civic merit medal. That was one. And I got an award from the National Council of Christians and Jews. And I got an award from the Committee of 39, which is a sort of a do-good government outfit. And 1 or 2 others, I can't always lay my hands on them.
Now, you're a former resident of Arden.
Right.
How did you begin your experience there? And you also were involved in Shakespearean theater there. Why don't you talk about that, too?
Well, one of the reporters on the Morning News by the name of Arthur Andrews lived in Arden, which is a single-tax colony.
Yes.
We used to call it the Free Love Colony, the communists, all that sort of the crackpots and everything else. And Mr. Andrews asked me to come out one time, so I went out. And then later on, I went out regularly, and I went to see the Shakespearean play. They gave Shakespeare every Saturday night in the summertime. They would begin with As You Like It, Midsummer Night's Dream, and end with Hamlet, say. So then around 1926, 27, I went out there regularly and settled down and spent my first winter out there. And then I got involved in the plays. They gave the plays in the open-air theater. And I started off as a spear bearer in Julius Caesar. And finally, as the good actors died out and went on their ways, I got some of the better parts, like Toby Belch in Twelfth Night and Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream and so forth. I finally got to play Macbeth in a play called Macbeth. And I had trouble learning lines. But in the Arden Theater, in the old days, if you missed a line, somebody in the audience would always give it to you. Okay?
Very knowledgeable audience.
Yeah.
Well, Arden, of course, was considered the countryside in those days.
Arden?
Arden certainly was.
Oh, it was. Well, such alleged crackpots lived there as Upton Sinclair. Mother Bloor, who was supposed to be the mother of the Communist Party, lived there. But it was started by Frank Stevens, who was a sculptor and one of the leaders of the single tax movement in Delaware. And they had some notables and some scoundrels living there.
Now, are you familiar with a character by the name of Tzvi Amati?
Yeah, I write a column for the Jewish Voice, which is the voice of the Jewish Federation of Delaware, and they decided I ought to have a Hebrew name. That's the rage now. So if you go to Israel, you got a Hebrew name. So they took my name, William Frank, and they translated to Zev Amiti. I think they call it. Zev is the Hebrew for William, and Amiti is the friendship. But I think Frank means friends and stuff like that.
You also were one of the founders of the Delaware Jewish Historical Society.
Yeah, Rabbi Geffen of the Beth Shalom was really the pusher, and I fed him some material, and together we organized the Jewish Historical Society, which is still flourishing. Because he's now in Israel. He went and lived in Israel.
Yes. Now, you should have retired from the News Journal a few years ago, I understand. What happened?
Well, the president of the company was named Chick Hackett, and as I approached retirement age, he suggested that I incorporate to a corporation. I'm really a corporation, see. And so I incorporated a thing called the Bill Frank Inc. And then I made a contract, had a contract with the News Journal. And the contract is that they hire my company to give them news, and then my company hires me. See, so I went to work right away, continued working. Now several other guys have tried that, but they say one corporation like that's enough. See.
Now, I understand you're fond of making up crazy songs and singing, and something having to do with your epitaph, I was told about.
Oh, you heard about that?
Yeah, I did. Why don't you tell the viewers? In fact, let me hear this song that you've created for your epitaph.
Well, I'll tell you very quickly. When I die, I used to say, when I die, I'm going to have a great big stone at my head of my grave, and people will come by and put a quarter in. And this quarter will then start a tape recording going, and it will play in my voice. You want me to sing it?
Yes.
It will go, the bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me. For me the angels sing-a-ling-a-ling, they got the goods for me. Oh death, where is thy sting-a-ling-a-ling, oh grave thy victory. The bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, but not for me. And so when this tape wears out, the money that you put in will go to furnish a new tape, you see.
Redubbing.
And that will be ad infinitum until the Messiah comes, or the resurrection, whatever it is. Eh?
Well, Bill Franks, thanks for coming on Focus Delaware and letting us get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks for letting me sing. Some people won't do it.
We'll be back after this next segment. I think you'll enjoy